Sure, I know who William Peterson is. To Live and Die in L.A. That's an iconic movie. Now, I don't know if you mean as an actor or a producer, uh, or both. He should like Tobit. I don't know what his religious background is, but To Live and Die in L.A. is awesome. Uh, yeah, you just have to talk to his people. I know any showing the script to anyone in uh, Hollywood in filmmaking is it's crazy. You send 100 query letters and 6 come back by robot. It's very clear they don't even read the letter. And maybe 2 will answer. It depends. On this, I guess it's probably about 2. Yeah, they say, 7 Jewish weddings and 7 demonic murders. Wow. And this is in the Bible? Yeah, we'll read it. So there are people out there reading it. I don't know how far it'll go. I think it's absolutely asinine not to make the film, given the demographics and the history of the book. Even before you get to the story. Well, there's 1.5 billion people who know the story of Tobit from their religious training. It's in the Catholic Bibles. It's in the Christian Orthodox Bibles. It's in Jewish lore. Jews who paid attention in school, let's call them the attentive public, the part of the Jewish population that is out there learning, discerning, and studying. Maybe they have a little more religious training than the others. They know the story of Tobit. Yeah, it's about an 80-year-old Jew. He's blinded, but he's going to become the father-in-law of Sarah. Sarah is a nice Jewish girl from a good Jewish family. So none of this is brought on her, but she's married 7 times. Girl gets married 7 times, and her new husband is immediately killed by a demon. The demon's name is Asmodeus, and sometimes the groom is killed right there where he's standing, under the tent. Hadn't moved an inch from where he was married. Sometimes he's killed on the way to the reception, sometimes in the reception, sometimes outside the reception hall, on the way to the honeymoon. Sometimes killed crashing or carrying the bride over the threshold. But so this happens 7 times, and think about that. Sarah is the main female lead, and she's resilient. And her emotions go up and down. You can imagine a film with 7 weddings and 7 demonic murders. So she's widowed 7 times. And yeah, little kids are taught this story all over the world. 1.5 billion are in Sunday school or were once in Sunday school. And in my experience, the nuns leave the part out about the empty wedding bed and the unconsummated marriages. But they do tell the story even to young kids, 8 and 10 years old. that a woman was married 7 times. They all know what weddings are, and they all know what a widow is because they ask, and the nun says, "Well, it's a woman or a man without a spouse. Their spouse has died." And little kids think, and they go, "Oh yeah, they know this lady or that lady, and they're these kids, and they don't have a dad, not because of divorce, but because he died." They're not little kids are not dumb, and they're taught this story from an early age, and it sticks. And all this was done by a demon. And at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that demon sticks. So they all know who Asmodeus was. And I'm sure when they get a little older, they chuckle, Asmodeus. But in the back of their mind, they're a little scared because they were scared when they were little kids. Yeah, it's not in the Bible anymore because, and I don't think that'll keep Protestants. It's not in the Protestant Bible anymore. It's in Catholic and Orthodox Christian Bibles. There's half the Bibles. So you can find one of those and read it. It's about 8 pages. It was taken out of Protestant Bibles starting in the United States in 1923. And I went to school in Dublin at University College, and it's a Catholic school. Now, I wasn't raised Catholic, but you can't help run into priests on a Catholic campus like University College. And one guy was particularly political. And I was there for my PhD in political science, totalitarian government. So I'm familiar with Soviet, Russia, Cuba, North Korea. Getting that way about China, I get a lot of questions about China. And back then, China wasn't as totalitarian, or we looked over it. But now that they're going to be our enemies, I'm sure we can label them whatever we want. But my Catholic priest friend in Dublin said, "Isn't it curious that the American Lutherans began removing Tobit from their Bibles in 1923, roughly 3 years after the end of World War I. So he blamed World War I for anti-Catholic feelings. And sure enough, whether that's true or not, there's never been a modern film or a feature length film based on Tobit. There's a silent from the 1920s, and a few animations and some short films that are designed for Sunday school classes, but nothing with any production value. And nothing on the big screen, and they're streaming nothing based on Tobit. So this would be ground-breaking material. I asked my Lutheran minister friend why the Lutherans were opposed to Tobit, and he said Luther was opposed to it, and Luther didn't want it in there. And I said, why? He said, magic. And this is a non-confrontational conversation. It's nothing, it's not that big a deal for either one of us. But I said, but you didn't get around to removing it until 1923, 3 years after World War I. Well, it's not politics. It's all about doctrine and theology. We don't like the magic in it. So it can't be in the Bible. Miracles are in the Bible. Protestant miracles, but Catholic, anything resembling Catholicism is magic, and we got to get rid of it. So I don't think Protestants removing it from their Bible, that's not a good reason to not make the film. Protestants will go see it regardless because it's about two pious characters, godly. They don't care if it's Jews. The current Christians community, they are very friendly towards Israel and Jews. In fact, they're allies big time against Islam. Fundamentalist Christians give a huge amount of money for the defense of Israel. And just look at their posts on social media, look at fundamentalist Christian television and radio. The biggest ally of Israel is not the Democratic or Republican Party, it's the fundamentalist base. So Protestants will go see it. Well, let me put it this way on a religious spectrum. In the 1920s, when there was an anti-Catholic bias, the Lutheran Church and the Catholic Church were at different ends of the not political spectrum, but religious spectrum. Now, because of extremism, cults, Islam, extremists, they are here. They're back to back, side by side. They're neighbors. And on the extreme left and on the extreme right, those are perceived as the enemies of Lutherans and Catholics, Protestants and Catholics. So it's an Old Testament story. Yeah. I told a different streaming platform, read the Bible, read the Book of Tobit. It's about 8 pages. And then email me. I'll send you the script. And you can tell me if I've botched it. I didn't. I took each verse and made it into a scene, and it's very honorable. The only thing I changed is the time and the setting, the place. It's not in modern-day Iraq. 3,000 years ago, more or less, the Jews in northern Israel were carted off to Mesopotamia and enslaved. So that's where the story takes place in the Bible. I don't think people are going to pay $12, $15 for a movie ticket for a story they think is 3,000 years old and the main characters are wearing robes. Demons, Tobit, Sarah, it doesn't really matter. And I can certainly add a lot of jeopardy to an 80-year-old blind guy. Put him in Amsterdam in 1930s. Because everybody knows what happens in 1941. Nazis show up. And they cart the Dutch Jews off to concentration camps, and it's quite brutal. I don't want to disparage the Jews from other nations, but a lot of them marched onto trucks and then trains, and there was little resistance. By the time it got around to Amsterdam, there was armed Jewish resistance and a good, healthy rebellion. But the Nazis answered with brutality. So everybody knows what's going to happen. We don't know what happens to Tobit. You can read the Bible and you know he dies. All I did is add a little mystery. How and where? Is he going to die in Amsterdam, a peaceful death in his bed, or a humiliating, choking, gas chamber, terrible death in a Nazi prison camp? So you don't know till the end. But so what's the big deal about one family of Jews going to a concentration? What about What about Tobit? What makes him so special? Because millions were carted off. Tobit is the most likable character, most open, probably the wisest character in all the Old Testament. They've done scientific studies, statistics, and a survey. Tobit's on 8 pages, but his likability is way farther higher than Noah and Moses and Abraham and the other main characters. The larger, honestly, more important characters in the Old Testament. But Tobit is pious, prays constantly, charitable. He takes care of strangers. He takes care of fellow Jews. And all of this, the entire story, it comes about because of his fervent desire to take care of his family. But he's 80, and he puts this whole movie into action by asking his son to go to London and pick up the money. He can't live in poverty. He's too prideful for that. But it's money he put away when he was young, and now it's a considerable sum, enough to get his. I guess he's feeling his mortality at 80, and he has a wife and a son, and he wants to make sure that they are taken care of. He's also looking for a grandkids. So when he sends Toby to London and he meets Sarah, that's great. Now there's some problems with Sarah because she's the girl who's had 7 husbands, and they've all been killed. And you have to think, will Toby be the next? Well, that's why Raphael is there. Tobit prays for a companion, and Raphael shows up. Sarah prays for someone to take care of this demon, and Raphael shows up. It's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I think you asked me about William Peterson. I don't know what his role is. I know it's very hard to get anybody to read anything. And they dig a trench around every celebrity, every producer, everybody. That's the manager and talent agent's real job, is to make sure no one gets their script in front of their person. Man, it's like feudalism big time. And the agent's the Lord, and the celebrity is the serf. That's crazy. Baseball, doctors, lawyers, corporations, many interest groups, professional interest groups, have gone to their state legislatures and got statutory immunity from lawsuits. I don't know why these executives don't do the same thing. It would free them from all these lawsuits. They could actually read scripts. So you want to know why they keep making the same old movies over and over and over again? It's because they don't want to get sued. They don't want to deal with anybody outside the establishment. And there is a political revolution going on in this country, and it's anti-establishment. It's Mr. Trump, and whether you like him or not, there's a huge populist movement who work and will probably for a long time be working to tear down the establishment. That's in both parties. Democrats, 1/3 of the Democrats are anti-establishment. Maybe half of the Republicans are anti-establishment. I think the last establishment to go will be the Hollywood establishment. It's too easy to hire your friend and make the same movie you made last year. Now, Tobit is different. I don't feel a grudge. I mean, I'm a political scientist. I'm a realist. I trained in just the harsh reality of the truth I understand liability laws, but I don't understand why they don't get something done about that. Yeah, well, the answer to that is they're not creatives. They're business. But even businessmen have been smart enough to go and get liability relief. I don't know. It's a puzzle. I think the establishment is conservative, and they're not going to change. Well, I can give you immunity from lawsuits, but then I'd have to deal with people that I don't know. I wouldn't have a convenient excuse to reject 100% of the scripts. I might have to hire a reader I might have to read a script or two myself. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know what. I don't want to be surprised, and I don't want to waste my time. You know, they did a survey of McDonald's restaurants, and the number one reason it's so popular and $100 billion business. I think like 13,000 restaurants worldwide, and it's because of consistency. When you go in, you know what you're going to get. You know, the Hollywood system and scripts now, today, they're like McDonald's. When you pick up a script, you know what's in it. There's nothing new because you're not reading any new writers. You're not reading black or brown or transgender scripts. They're not in the establishment. They're locked out. How are they locked out? How does Hollywood lock out black, brown, and transgender screenwriters and women to that much extent, and lesbians and gays? Why are they locked out? They don't have to read shit. They don't have to read it. They have a robot. They have a computer program that reads the email and automatically responds. We don't read unsolicited material. So if you can't see the establishment in that, even if you are establishment, maybe you consider yourself establishment Hollywood. Look at the disservice you've done by making the same movies over and over and over again. Yeah, that's the reason why Tobit's not, one of the reasons why Tobit has not been made into a feature film in 100 years. Because it's outside. Anyone that's going to write it is not part of the establishment. It's too risky. Oh gosh, Catholics and Jews and Protestants, and they all have an opinion about it, and should be in the Bible and shouldn't be in the Bible. And yeah, okay, one more story. Yeah, okay. I researched this for weeks. It took me 3 or 4 days to actually write it, but I'm looking into it and I'm thinking, and I come from an academic background. I taught 30 years political science, American government, comparative government. So I'm trained to look at these things. And you know what really caught my eye was a somewhat asinine debate. It was on Facebook. And I thought, man, these guys are wasting their time. But doesn't this argument really tell you something? You know who people are based on the arguments they make. And you want to know what's in someone's heart? Well, you get into an argument with them, or a polite discussion, or argumentation. So there were Protestants. The question on the little chat on the post-it was, is Toby a religious name? And I guess they had gotten tired of debating whether Tobit should be in the Bible or out of the Bible. The Protestants argued, and it was very clear, the Protestants argued it's not a religious name. No one in the Bible is named Toby. and they're adamant, and they're not going to move. And the Catholics and the Russians disagree. It's in the Bible. It's in the Book of Tobit. Wait, what? The Protestants are playing dumb. Never heard of it. Never. What kind of crazy magic is that? Is that Catholic mysticism? Is that Jewish, the Kabbalah? What is that Muslim? We don't know any Toby over here. So I thought it was amusing, and Toby comes from the Book of Tobit, which was probably removed largely because of political bias, anti-Catholic, anti-German, ironically by the Lutherans, because it had magic in it. I don't know. What's a miracle? I mean, there are Old Testament miracles or New Testament miracles. And we didn't, if that was the criteria for removing books from the Bible, we wouldn't have a Bible. So I'm a Protestant, and I think Tobit should probably be included in the Bible, and should certainly be made into a film. Maybe William Peterson could get it done. I'm sure he could get it done. He's top 20 on IMDb. Long track record. Lots of connections. I don't think you get that high in Hollywood without the ability to get something done. I would like for him to read it, but I honestly have no idea. I think of all the scripts I've written, this one has the best chance. And that's because of 1.5 billion people think like me and think it's a compelling story. Okay, I went along. Just edit whatever you want out. You can't take it out of context because I'm just going from the story. And the story's 3,000 years old. So what? I mean, how can I screw that up?